All right, let's dive right in. We're going to tackle a pretty intense idea today, something that might even push back against what you've always been told. The idea that your mind has to be the master of your feelings.
And we're going to kick things off with a quote that's designed to make you stop and think. The greatest lie you've ever been told is that your feelings deserve a voice. Wow. I mean, that's a direct shot at so much of what we hear today, right? The whole point here is that maybe, just maybe, listening to every little feeling is actually what's keeping you stuck.
So, the argument goes something like this. This idea of honoring your feelings isn't making you stronger. It's actually a poison. It's like this cozy, comfortable blanket the world hands you to keep you, well, to keep you tame, to keep you predictable. It stops you from being the person who's really in charge of their own life.
Okay, so that brings us to the absolute heart of this whole idea. We've got to break down the difference between fact and feeling. This distinction is everything.
And here it is, the simple, brutal, and absolutely essential truth. Your feelings are not facts. Let that sink in for a second. This is the bedrock of everything else we're going to talk about. Just because you feel something doesn't make it true.
Okay, look at this. On the left, you've got facts. The market opens at 9:30 a.m. A kilometer is 1,000 meters. These are things you can't argue with. They're just true. But on the right, that's the land of feelings. I'm too tired. I deserve a cheat day. See the difference? The whole problem, according to this framework, is that we treat the stuff on the right like it's the stuff on the left. We treat our feelings like they're undeniable facts.
So what even is a feeling in this context? It's defined as a temporary, low-energy signal. Basically, it's your brain trying to take the easy way out, to conserve power and stick with what's comfortable. Think of it like a default setting that always pulls you toward weakness and inaction. It's a signal for comfort, not a signal for growth.
And this idea naturally leads us to two completely different ways of living, two mindsets. You're either a slave to your moods, or you're the commander of them.
On one hand, you've got the slave to mood. You know this person. They're always waiting for motivation to strike. They only hit the gym or start that project when it feels right. They're basically asking their emotions for permission to act. But then you have the internal commander. This person is the architect of their own state of mind. They don't wait for the feeling, they create the feeling through action. They simply override those weak signals.
And this quote just nails the philosophy of the internal commander. See, it's not about being a robot with no feelings. It's about having a vision that's so powerful, so clear, that you're willing to do the hard stuff, the stuff you hate, because you know it serves that higher purpose.
And this really lays out the stakes, doesn't it? That little hit of relief you get when you quit, when you give in to the feeling, it feels good for a second. But that satisfaction is nothing compared to the long-term nagging pain of knowing you could have been more. The pain of discipline is short, but the pain of regret can last forever.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the what and the why. Let's get practical. How do you actually do this? This is your playbook for becoming that internal commander.
Enough theory. It's time for action. This is your direct command.
It boils down to this simple three-step process. First, identify. You got to call it out. What is this feeling? Is it fear, procrastination? Give it a name. Second, acknowledge. You just look at it and say, okay, you're a feeling. You're not a fact. You're just a signal. You strip it of its power. And third, the most important part, act. You do the exact opposite of what the feeling is telling you to do, immediately. No debating, no thinking it over, you just move.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. You feel like you don't want to write that proposal? Your action is to sit down and write for 90 minutes straight. You feel too full to track your food? You pull out your phone and track it perfectly. That feeling of intimidation? That's your cue to walk right up to that person and start talking. It's about massive, decisive, opposite action.
So what's the end game here? What happens when you do this over and over again? Well, you're not just getting more stuff done. You are fundamentally changing who you are on the inside. You're rewriting your own code.
This is so important. Every single time you choose to act instead of caving to an emotion, you're casting a vote. You're casting a vote for the person you want to be. It's not a one-and-done thing. It's a process. You're literally reprogramming your brain, one action at a time.
That's what it comes down to. You are training your feelings. You're teaching them to follow your lead, not the other way around. Instead of getting tossed around by every passing mood, you become the one setting the damn course. This is self-mastery.
And this is where you end up. Look, those feelings of laziness or fear, they probably won't vanish completely. But their voice, their power over you, gets weaker and weaker. Eventually, they're just a tiny whisper that you can barely even hear over the roar of your own discipline and your own purpose.
So we end with this. This is the question you have to ask yourself. After all this, who is really running the show? Who's in the driver's seat? Is it you, or is it your feelings? The choice is always yours to make.